Hello there and welcome to my YouTube channel, Juliet Neilcraft. So today I am playing with some Samantha K, and this time she has made chipboards. This is her latest range. We've got some gorgeous chippies. Now so far I've done quite grungy looking things because I made a whole load of papers with the jelly plate and the chipboards, and I was absolutely inspired by those. Do you know, now I've seen that, I've got another circle tag. Let's make two at the same time. And so this time I thought, let's try and do something a bit softer and a bit prettier. So I am going, well, pretty in a different way. I am going to just sort of layer up some of these chipboards with a bit of gel medium. Then I'm going to gesso them down and do some. So I had originally sort of pulled this one out and thought that would be quite nice, but then as I was showing you the chipboard, I thought that sat there as well. Also looks particularly nice. So yeah, why not do two? The thing is, I'm actually in the process of making samples for the Chanda TV show. Whether these go out sort of at the time of the TV show or just after or just before, I don't know. So making more than one is probably quite good anyway, because, you know, obviously the more samples that I have to send off, the better. So I'm just looking at what we have got. It's such a soft, pretty range that we've got this time. I'm really wanting to make the most of this, and I'm trying to layer it up in such a way that, you know, we really get the benefit of it. We've got another circle here. Yeah, that looks quite nice. I'm actually going to turn it that way. Yeah, so I'll add that one on. So as I said, for this one I'm just going to let the chipboard do the work on its own. I mean, to be honest, it was the star of the show before, but I ended up making pretty cool papers and things, which are fabulous. But it's just a different technique, isn't it? And that's the whole point of doing videos. It's the whole point of people having a design team in the first place, because people do different things with the products, which then gives you lots of different ideas. So that, yeah, so it's nice to be just doing something so that everything's not all the same. I'm just going to add that down and pop that there. So yeah, I'm just building that up, and so there I wasn't afraid to sort of snip into it to get what I wanted. It's left me with a random bit which I might use. I might not actually, might just pop that one there, almost call that done, maybe a bit further down like that. I like that there anyway, so I'm going to add the flower. I might see what we've got, lots of vines and bits and pieces. So this is me being very extravagant and just piling loads on. So the other ones I sort of used the background. I used the chipboards to create a background, and then you know, made a little dysfunction. I don't know what's happened to my camera's telling me some strange things. I'm going to start chopping into this vine as well. Add a few extra little bits and pieces. Oh, it's so pretty. But I just thought this is also such a soft, delicate range. It's so fine and so pretty. But I kind of also wanted it to speak volumes in its own right. I also just wanted to do, sorry, there's something weird happening with my, there we go. Yeah, I also just sort of wanted to let the chipboard do the speaking, and do something where, as I said, a bit of white gesso, a little bit of delicate colouring, you know, maybe with some really pretty sprays or something, and just see what happens. So just building. I'm just going to pop this one to the side at the minute, just so that we can focus on this one, and then I'll do the other one as well. But yeah, so this one I'm going to have to, I'll be sticking it all together now, and then we can work on it later, because it'll need drying time. But it's getting there. I'm liking the direction that we have anyway. It's got an interesting direction. Now, do I want more of this in, or are we sort of getting there with this? I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe have another. This is like layer upon layer upon layer. Fabulously extravagant, but I love it. But you get loads in this range, loads in the packet. Right, there we go. That's looking quite good. Do I want, let's see, yeah, that's looking pretty good like that. So I am just going to leave that one now, I think. What I may do, I'm just going to clean up my desk because I've managed to get gel medium on my desk. What I may do is just sort of go into, because this is so beautiful and delicate that obviously you end up with extra gel medium. I'm just going to go around with my paintbrush. This is an old paintbrush, so if it gets wrecked it's not the end of the world, but I will just try and pop it straight into some water. That is one advantage of now crafting downstairs, is that I am near the bathroom and the kitchen, so you know we do have sinks and water available, whereas when I was in the loft it was more of a thought of I had to really want to go downstairs and put something in water. So yeah, I'm just as I said, lifting these extra bits of gel medium that are just sort of squidging through. Just as I said, the pattern is so delicate, I don't want to lose that. And obviously when we start to gesso and get colour down there, it's going to pick up everything. It's going to pick up all those extra little bits that we've managed to create, so just removing them makes a difference. Okay, so I've got these gorgeous bubbly pieces. I do like these. Down there, and then I'll have another piece come down here. So I don't know if this one's going to need, I've layered quite a lot of the chipboard up in that other piece, but whether I'll do quite as much on this, because I think that's looking quite good like that, and then pop that flower there, and have a little look at some of these swirls and see if that is something that we want to do. Okay, I'm just going to, because my husband started watching TV and I'm just aware that I might be able to hear that, so I'm just going to close the doors here. So I'm going to grab this swirly bit here and stick that down. I thought it coming right off the piece there. And let's see, I've got one here, but I don't want the piece to end up being huge. But I feel like if you've got a bit going up that way, that it's quite good to have a matching piece. So the one thing with it being chipboard as opposed to MDF this time is that the snippability is it's much easier to sort of snip into something. Right, so I'm just going to grab that there and pop that down like so. So that is that piece done. So we've got that one. Let me grab the other one in. And we have this one. So we've got those two there. So I think what we're going to do is leave that to dry. I'm going to do the same thing with my paintbrush. Grab the extra bits of gel medium so we don't have the extra sort of lumps and bumps and things. And then we will cover those with white gesso and then just play around with sprays until that we get something pretty that we're happy with. Okay, so both of these projects have dried now, and I am just going to grab some gesso and let's get some, I love the gesso on there, it's just to unify all the substrates so that they will work the same. when we put the sprays on them. And also it'll just help the sprays to come out a truer colour because they will be working on a white base rather than on the colour of both the MDF and the chipboard. So a little bit of a lengthy process this, because I'm going to have to get in all the nooks and crannies. I'll probably also find that I'll end up giving it a second coat, but I'll maybe just pop you on fast forward a minute while I just get this painted up. Okay, so that's these two pieces had their 2 coats of gesso. They're still needing to dry, but I'm thinking, especially as I was working on it, this one is quite delicate because it's got nothing supporting those swirls, and it is going in the post down to Hachanda. So I'm thinking I'm maybe just going to mount this one here. You can tell that's still wet because I've just put a fingerprint in it, so we'll just rectify that with a little bit of brush in there. So I'm thinking that this would maybe be better mounted on this other piece of MDF. So what I'm thinking is, let's just put that to the side before I completely break it. What I'm thinking is maybe let's get some music paper. I'm just going to put this to the side. Let's get some music paper onto this, and we'll just create a little bit of a music paper collage as a background. I'll put a few bits and pieces down. Let's just build up a bit of a subtle collage. I'm just going to get my gel medium. I've got some of this music paper. I've got some brown tissue paper here as well, and maybe a little bit of washi, and we'll just build up a little bit of something just to frame this. So I think what I'll do is I'll build it up and then we'll knock it back with gesso after, because we want it to be fairly subtle. So we'll just do that and see how we go, how it looks. So I need to get a bit of gel medium underneath that as well, and then we can go to spraying our chippies. Our chipboards. They're nice to work with actually. I'm used to working with this MDF from Samantha K, but they're definitely a much lighter product, a lot more flexible. So it depends what you like doing. If you like, so I like making cards and journal pages and stuff like that. They're perfect for that because they give that dimension and that look, but they've not got the same weight to them, which is quite good. They're also just ever so slightly more flexible as well, which is cool. So I'm going to get that all on there, and then hopefully I will have my favourite washi to hand, which I will just grab in a moment. It's looking a bit of a hot mess at the minute, but hopefully once we've finished it'll look absolutely fine. Let's get that on there. Okay. And then actually I might just get some of the tissue papers on. I like the tissue paper as well because it just it crunkles up as you put it on, and that'll all add to the texture of it. I feel like I'm making myself a nice hot mess here. So yeah, let me get some of this on, and as I said, I'm kind of hoping it will wrinkle up and not go on straight, because that's added texture, which will help it to look sort of nice and aged and old, and it's just a fun way of using it. So let's get that on there, like so. I'm trying to hit, so I've got the corners here that don't have much on them as yet, so I'm trying to make sure that I get those. As I said, I really am sort of really smooshing it up to get to get a bit of added texture to it. And I'm going to put a little bit on top. So I'm just playing and building. All of this is going to get knocked back anyway. There we go. I think it's getting there. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of the Be Crafty, oh I can't think, washi, and let's just, I might just give this a little blatter with the old heat gun. So I have this washi that's got sort of like script detail on it and equations, random bits and pieces, and I just think it's going to add another little element. And again, because we've got that sort of semi-translucent feel, we're still going to see all the textures and the music notes and things that are going on underneath there, and it's just all going to add to that a little bit. I like to have the edges torn somewhat so that I don't have any sort of harsh straight lines, especially when something like this has got that sort of a bit of an organic feel going on to it. So again, as I said, I like it when it tears in the middle. In fact, if it doesn't tear in the middle like that, I end up tearing it myself. There we go. And then I might just get another little bit of this tissue paper again, just because I've got a few sort of straight edge lines here which I don't want, and that just will remove those a little bit. Okay, as I said, I'm wanting the chipboards that sit on top of this to be the focal point, so this is just a background element. It's just sort of there but not there. It's not really what I'm wanting people to see, so it's kind of just, it needs to work and just be sort of blended into the background a little bit. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So we'll just, again, let's just get the heat gun on that, dry that off, and then as I said, I'm going to knock that back with a bit of gesso. And we'll probably spray something on this as well, but maybe just one of the colours, and then have the the chipboards with a couple of feature colours on it so that it stands out that little bit more. So now I'm just going to grab my brush that I'm using with the gessos, and as I said, I'll blend this all together. This is where the texture of that tissue paper is going to come out a little bit more, and we'll just sort of marry all the pieces together. I always find when I am gessoing and stuff like that, when I've put bits of pieces together, like here we've got a harsh line between the paper and the tissue, that is a point I will blend, because it just softens those edges and makes it look one, as opposed to lots of random bits being stuck down, which is essentially what it is. But it's when these sort of pieces come together with these little tricks and look like they were meant to be, rather than you've been reading your box of bits to make a project together. And then just very lightly going to put that on there. So that's me got that ready. Now let's bring in the chippies again, and we'll do a little bit of so I have these Tattered Angel Glimmer Mists I'm going to have a play with, because they're nice and delicate. So I'm just going to put this sort of shimmery, goldy, just pearlized thing. We're not going to see much to that, but it's just maybe going to give something to create a little bit of movement. And at the minute I'm going for an all over colour. I'm actually stood up now so that I'm spraying from far away, so that I'm getting a delicate mist as opposed to a very directional look. And I'm just going to have a little play with these colours here. That's beginning to get a little bit stronger than I'd intended, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is come back in with that original spray, which was more of a mist, and actually I've got this one here, which is a white. So let's just, we can, with a bit of that, just sort of knock some of that back again. So yeah, see, this is, the flower there has been knocked back, so that's quite white, but we've still sort of got that colour in the background. So I'm just going to move that to the side. I'm going to use the same technique but a different product. I'm going to use my Distress Oxide sprays, partly because they're a new toy and I want to play with them, and partly because they are a stronger colour. So we're going to get a very different look to what we've achieved with the first project. So rather than having sort of two projects similar, it will have a little bit of a variety between them. So at the minute I'm choosing all sort of colour tones that go together. I've gone for the greens and blues. I'm just going to have to grab my painty cloth there because I've loosened at the top. So I do want to bring pinks into both of these projects, but I'm going to do that after the first drying layer so that we've got more chance of the pink standing out as opposed to creating like a muddy effect. So I'm just going to add that there, and I'm going to now leave that one to dry. You can see that has dried with an extremely delicate sheen there. We've got some very pale colours of the teal and the gold coming through there now. But if I bring out in the backing that we had, this now sort of maybe looks a little bit harsh, which is why we need to maybe get a little bit of colour on to this one. So I am going to again use the spray, the pearlised spray white, and we'll get that sort of initial layer on here, whiten this up a little bit. And then I'm thinking I'm going to maybe use, shall I use this one because it's a stronger white. I think I'm then maybe going to use some of the pink. So we're just knocking that back beautifully there so that it's going to match. And we'll put some of this one on because it's got a sheen, so it's going to give us the pearlised look that will match the other one. And then I'm thinking just a tiny bit of pink. So I'm going quite high. Oh, that's brighter than I expected. Okay, that's fine. And also my nozzle was a bit clogged. Now that was brighter than expected, but that's okay, because what we can do is we can either just dab, and that's automatically going to knock it back, and you tend to find this dries a lot lighter than you expect anyway. And then I can put, it's sort of gone a bit circular, I'm going to get that glimmer mist, just the plain pearlised glimmer mist, get loads of that on, and that's starting to move it now, so it's less dotty and directional, and it's got that softer look that I was originally after. I'm just going to pop that aside. Okay, so now I'm going to paint with my oxide sprays because I am loving how this is looking. But I do want a splash of pink, and I also want to do a little bit of shadowing. So I'm thinking it would be cool. Actually, what might be easier, because I'm liable to knock that off, quite frankly, is let's just pull in a little acrylic block, and I'll just put a very short directional spray right there. And I'm just going to pick that up with my brush, and I'm just going to put that onto the flower. Now it's going to blend in with the green. We're going to kind of get a bit more of a purpley tone. I'm actually going to be doing some dry brushing with some sort of pearlised acrylic paint at some point, so it'll take on another look again, but it's just for a bit of fun, a bit of added extra colour, just to make this flower pop out a little bit. As I said, it's not going to be overly strong at this stage because it's a water-based product and it's going on top of a water-based product, so it is going to pick up the colour and move a little bit. There are products that you could put on. If I'd put a clear gesso on, that would have stopped. If I'd maybe gessoed it white first and then put a layer on, or there is a Distress sort of colour, like fixative layer, I can't remember what it's called. I do have it actually somewhere, but that could be done too. But it's just going to make this flower stand out ever so slightly from the rest. Okay, so then what I may do is, let me see, what do I want to do? I'm kind of thinking that I would quite like to do some sort of, let's get this one out, do some definite shadowing. So I think I might just put this on the leaves as well, again just because this will make it a bit more of a solid colour surrounding it, so we'll maybe, it'll highlight, especially if I maybe go onto these ones as well, and just highlight that ever so slightly. We've still got that look of the randomness of the spray doing its own thing, but then we're just picking out a little bit of it. And as I said, I'm going to do most of this. Most of this is going to come to life with dry brushing. But I might just create a little bit of a shadow around some of these areas. I think I need some water for this as well, so let's just get some, because I wasn't clever enough to actually grab some water and put it in a jar. But we're just going to end up adding that to there, like so, just to get a little bit of the shadow. We all know I like my shadowing effect, and it's because it pushes, it makes the brights look brighter, and it creates, it just sort of builds that 3D look if you have that shadow element in there somehow. So that has gone quite purpley. I'm just going to dry that again. We'll add another pink layer. And as I said, then we're going to come in and do some dry brushing with some acrylic paints, I think, and then we might possibly just add a little bit of gilding wax as well, but I'll just try giving it another layer of the oxides. The reason I like the oxides is they're all going to play nicely together. The colours are obviously designed to match and work together, so that's all good. I also might end up putting a little bit of bling. I might have a few gems tucked here and there just to sort of bling this up a little bit. But yeah, I'm liking how that is looking so far. So let's just give this another blast with the heat gun. And as I said, now I'm just going to grab a couple of acrylics and we'll see how we get on with that. Okay, so I have got out my Pebeo acrylics. This one is rouge and this one is blue turquoise. And I'm just going to, before I start the dry brushing thing, I'm actually just going to come in with those acrylics and get the flower, because the oxide, it has worked, but as I said, I'd like it to pop just that a little bit more. So we'll do that. I'm trying to decide whether I want to dry brush in white or whether I want to try it with that blue. What I might do is try it with the blue on those leaves and things, because I'd quite like to highlight the, even if I do end up dry brushing with white, I'd quite like to build up some of those leaves a little bit, which means even if I decide, so it'll work either way basically. Okay, so that's that built up ever so slightly. I'm just going to grab another brush, take some of this blue. I'm just working it into my brush so that it's coming about a third of the way up to the brush. Okay, because I want it in the brush, so the colour's there, but I'm not sort of wanting it on the tips and things, so I'm going to take that off. And then I'm just going to, like that. Now that's not actually making the hugest amount of difference, so I'm going to go with white, I think. White and a bit gilding wax, that's just that decision made. Okay, so let's just blatter this, and then we will grab the gesso. In fact, I'll give this a wee blatter, but then I'll pop it aside, because as we dry brush that, it will no doubt pick up, the paint will get picked up because it's still quite wet, whereas if we work on the other one for a little bit, it'll just mean that that's a bit drier for when we go to do some dry gessoing. So let's just pop that aside and we'll bring the other one. This is looking quite delicate. We've got that delicate green, but I'm just thinking the two elements sort of need tied together just a little bit more. So I've pulled out this green ribbon, and I'm thinking that what I will do is let's wrap this green ribbon around. I'm just going to grab a piece of this red sticky tape because it's extremely strong and it should just do the trick quite nicely. So I'm just going to get that stuck down there, and then I'm just going to wrap this ribbon around like so, and we'll get it stuck down here as well. And again, you could put backing paper on the back of this to neaten it up a little bit. We don't have to show the workings. There we go. So we've got that. Now that's probably going to be a bit too strong. So guess what I'm going to do? Yeah, we're going to knock it back with chisel. So, yeah, I think that's just going to bring the green in. And to be honest, I'm still wanting this a little bit whiter. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, I am going to knock it back with gesso. It's my solution to every project that I'm not sure of. I'm just actually wanting this a bit whiter than it is. So I'm just going to add some gesso there, and I'm actually going to bring over some of this ribbon. It's a very shiny ribbon, which is beautiful, but it just needs, I don't know, I feel it needs a bit of gesso treatment. So let's just, we'll knock this back just a little bit. We've still got all that movement and colour in there. It's still there, but we've just made it a little bit more subtle, because as I said, what we want is for this to be the standout piece. So yeah, that is working for me. Now I'm going to do a very similar thing to what we did with the last project. I'm going to try and individually paint some of these elements. So I am going to start off with this spray. It was actually quite a strong colour, so hopefully this should work quite well. And I'm going to put it on my acrylic block again, turn that into a little bit of a paint palette, and I'm going to grab my thin brush, she says. I'm just going to grab a brush. I'm just going to get myself a bit of water as well, and we'll see how we go. So again, I'm thinking that I'm just going to paint the flower. Now yeah, I could have painted this before I put it on. If I'd known what I was doing, I might well have done. But I also quite like the effect that the spray has when it runs between all the different layers, and I wouldn't have got that the same. So again, it's about building layers up, and this is working for what I want it for at this moment in time. I'm enjoying the process. Also now all the sides, so I'm kind of painting the top, but the sides of those, this still has that lovely green, so it works, you know, looking at it from that direction as well. So I think there's sort of, obviously, as with everything, pros and cons to doing it different ways, but I definitely think with mixed media, I tend to work in layers. I tend to have to make sure that I like the full layer before I move on to the next. Even if that does mean once I hit the next layer that I'm covering a load of stuff up. But it's just all part of it. And again, I'm thinking that a really nice blingety bling gem in there might look quite good. And I'll probably do similar with this project as well. And maybe, actually I might add gilding wax to this one, and I might dry brush the other one. So we're sort of bringing out the texture, but in different ways. So that's actually not taking me too long. I was about to say I'll pop it on fast forward because, you know, just while I finish it, but then I realised I've actually only got 2 petals to go. So I'll just keep waffling for 2 petals. This spray as well, I have noticed that you kind of put it out and think, oh my goodness, that is so dark. But because it's got that loads of mica in this, there's loads and loads of mica in it, that actually when it dries you sort of lose that harsh colour and it just turns into this really soft pearlized effect. and yeah, it ends up looking really soft and pretty. Now what I'm also thinking is if I really water this down, I really want it very watered, that having just a tiny bit in some of the inside some of the bubbles, I might just give this a slightly different look again. I don't think I'll get to all the bubbles, but for some of them it might be quite pretty. Just an extra little detail in there. Just brings that pink out further, just that tiny little bit. Yeah, quite happy with that. Okay, so we're just as I said expanding that pink. Now what I might do is get the blue spray, the greeny blue spray. We'll do a bit of shadowing around the edge of where the chipboard would be, and I possibly might cover some of the swirls as well, but I'm thinking possibly just the shadowing part. So this is the thing, when you've got your sprays, it's just remembering most of the products that you can buy. You know, if you've got watercolour paints, you can make your own sprays with them. If you've got sprays, you can decant it and turn them into paints. Basically, whether it's a spray or whether it's a paint, it's just the form that it takes. It's like if you buy watercolours in a tube, it's the same as a pan. It's just that a pan has got them, they've basically been taken out the tube and left to dry. So don't feel like, oh, I don't have sprays, so I can't do this technique. You could look at what you got, because actually possibly some of the sprays and things that you do have will work absolutely fine. And you know, some of the products you could have, little simple water bottle, and all of a sudden you've got a spray. Conversely, if you only have sprays and don't have paint, you can decant your sprays and use it as paint. So just try and think of the product that's actually inside the bottle or the tub, and different, you know, almost like don't define it by what container it's come in. Feel free, just have a play and see what you can do with that. So we've sort of emphasised those bits there, and I'm wondering whether just to maybe do the swirl as well while I'm at it, and then we'll just lay that on top of the base and see how it's looking. Now this one is going to have a much more delicate look than the other one, but that's kind of what I was wanting to do, show sort of two contrasting styles but with the same technique. So basically we've just used sprays, we're painting elements of it, everything's come together very similarly, but just by changing the colours. So one of the sprays has got a chalky finish and it's brighter, and this spray has got a mica finish and is more subtle, but that's looking quite good like that. So bring this back in, and that's how that will sit together, and I think that is actually looking really pretty. So I am just going to adhere those two bits together. Okay, so I've actually glued that down using a combination of gel medium for permanent adhesion and a glue gun, because I actually have to get this posted out today. So yeah, I'm sort of running against the clock. Ideally, if I could have left it till tomorrow, we would have done okay. So I'm just actually going to be putting a little bit of this spray just around the edges here, which I was going to do shadowing, but I'm actually thinking if it dripped out that would be quite cool. So I'm going to add a bit of, spray a bit of water, see if I can get that just sort of travelling down. Now technically I could actually spray that with the actual spray and get a similar effect, but I'm a bit concerned that I'll end up spraying and going on something that I haven't quite intended for it to go on, and that could be unfortunate. So because I'm quite liking the way the rest of it looks, I don't really want to spray on something that I don't want it on, but yeah, I do like the idea of it travelling, and I'm not quite sure I could get that without getting the actual main base. But yeah, I am actually really liking the way the colour is travelling from underneath the disc there and travelling out, and it's catching all of those wrinkles and things from the tissue paper that we put down. And this is where like all the layers the fact they're there. This is sort of parts where it maybe comes together. You kind of see them for a while and then you don't see them as you knock it back with gesso, and then you see them again as you bring something else in, and yeah, I just think that all looks, but yeah, I'm absolutely loving the way it's travelling down some of those creases. And again, when this dries, we're going to lose the strength of that colour a little bit, so it's going to be a really, really subtle feature to the project. I might just try and get some travelling underneath and down this side as well, just to get it to tie together that little bit, like so. As well. I fancy a bit of colour just here as well. Now I'm just patching colour on. So this rule of threes, it's like this corner was looking a bit empty, so I'm feeling I need to put a bit in that corner, and then I also will then feel that I need to put a bit in this corner. Once I've done that, I'll feel that it looks balanced. But sometimes even the colourway, where you place the colour on the project, if you can sort of follow those design guidelines, it does make a difference to how the finished project will end up looking. So I think we're probably good to go with that. Let's just give this a blatter with the heat gun, and then what I'm going to do is get some gilding wax, and we'll just do the final bit of emphasis on some of those elements and features with a bit of gilding wax, and then I'll maybe just see if I've got a nice sentiment somewhere I can just bring out and pull together. It's all looking fabulosus. Right, so there we go. Right, let me see to get some wax. So I have got my Pebeo gilding wax in silver, and I think I'm going to start off, let's actually give the edges to the project. Okay, sorry if there was a strange edit there, the battery decided to die. So yeah, I just put the gilding wax around the edge of the project, and I'm just going to sort of grab some of the edges of this main part as well. And then because this is a furniture grade wax, once we've let that sort of dry a little bit, we should be able to polish that up and really make it shine, which should be pretty cool. I'm just going to grab the edges of those. Okay, so put that on. That's still quite delicate, so I'm glad I've sort of as a whole decided to mount it. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my little cloth and let's just buff up some of the bits where the wax has been put on, because this is where it really comes to life, because we get that lovely sheen on it. So it'll be a bit more gentle in some of these areas, but we should still be able to get that working for us. I'm just making sure that I support the bit of chipboard before I start to buff it. This is why I really like the Pebeo. I've tried a few different gilding waxes, I've tried specific craft ones as well, but always come back to the Pebeo. It's just, I think the fact it's that furniture grade, you just get really good coverage, and the fact that you're able to buff it up and make it shine, whereas I've tried that with some of the other ones and it just suddenly disappears. Right, so I think we're almost done with this one. I'm thinking a little bit of bling and a sentiment and we're good to go, but I'm just going to get the other project that we were working on to the same stage. Okay, so for this one we're going to bring out the texture by dry brushing with gesso. So I've got some gesso in my lid, I've put it on my brush, I've sort of knocked it off and put it into my rag as well, and I'm just going to, and this is where it really lifts it, we'll kind of brighten these areas. I might have to go over it a few times to get how I like, but I can tend to be a bit heavy-handed with gesso, so, and doing this dry brushing technique, and end up losing everything that I've done. So I would rather go slow and build it up than sort of go too much at once, because at the minute I just feel like all I've done is knock the colour back, so I definitely want it to be picking up the edges so we get the contrast. So I'm wanting it to be a bit heavier, so I'll reload, and as I said, I'm just trying to catch the edges so that they are nice and bright. So I'm trying not to cover the colour that's in the main part of the chipboard, but as I said, I'm just doing something to bring out all of that, because when we put the sprays on and things, it makes it all matte, whereas getting this edges is, again, what it's doing, it's bringing in those sort of highlight, mid-tone and shadow. You're getting the contrast of, you know, that bright white on the edges and the bit of colour in the centre, and that is what's just going to lift it and make it sort of stand out that little bit more. So I'm really trying to get my brush in now, get to the grooves so that I'm hitting the edges with the paint, and that's why you want the paint about the 3/4 of the way up the brush, so because that's the part of the brush that's hitting the edges, so that's the part of the brush that you want that paint on, so that we are getting that contrast and it is bringing it all together. So I'm going quite fast, quite a firm motion. As I say, I'm trying to hit my project with this part of the brush. I'm hitting the flat and I'm wanting about 3/4 of the way up. That's the bit that's hitting. So that's where, as I said, that's where I wanted my paint, and that's where I'm aiming for, so that I'm only catching the edges and I'm not just basically painting the whole thing white again. So that's not what I want. What I want is just to create a bit of tonal difference so that we can see it. And that is coming together quite nicely. Now I'm working on that flower because obviously I'm wanting that to be the feature. And we just get to that stage. So it's amazing the difference a bit of dry brushing can make to the project. We're beginning to see all the different colour tones as well, because they've been broken a little bit. Okay, so that as well, I'm quite happy with that. What I'm going to do is just clear my desk and grab some bling and some sentiments, and we'll finish them. Okay, so I have a few bits and pieces of bling, which I'm thinking would be quite nice. Now these colours go really nice with this one. We'll start with this one, and I'm thinking we should put a big bit in the centre, and then we can maybe have a few other bits dotted about. We'll see how we go. See if I can get this. I'll tell you, like, I've literally just been using it. Okay. So, there we go. Get that one on. And I'm just wondering whether to have some in some of the little circles. Whether that's quite cool or whether that's just a bit too OTT. I actually think it's alright. Yeah, I quite like that. Why not? Right, get some glue down on those. It just sort of maybe emphasises the circle. What I might do is just maybe just contemplating dry brushing those so that the focus is on the main one here. I don't know, maybe we should just go all out bling. What do we think? Right, so I'll put this down like so. Got a bit of glue off there. But I just thought it was maybe a fun way to emphasise this little circle element that we've got happening in the background there. I'm also feeling that both of these may need white splashes. because it's me that we're talking about. Right, so we've got those in there, and then I was kind of wondering if we want some off the, coming off the circle as well, like so. Yeah, I'm going for it. Big time, but I very rarely put this amount of bling on something, so it's not like me at all, but I actually quite like that. And then I might use some of these, I've got some smaller gems there as well. So let's just get some glue down, stick those down. I like this where the gems and things are sort of tucked behind things. I think that's normally what I do with bling. I hide it quite well. I don't tend to have it like in your face. This amount on one project all at the same time just feels very very in your face. Okay. But why not? Right, I've got that. We should have the odd more one or two, just because we can really. I'm just going to bling it mad now. This is still a bit rocky because it's only got a tiny bit of glue in the middle holding it down, but that's because I used gel medium and that's going to take overnight to dry, but hopefully that'll all be okay. Right, oops. Still a bit of movement. Some of those pieces, let's try and add a bit of extra pressure. Right, so that's looking quite good. Now, let me see. Explorer's Dream, Discover, would that work? Explore, Dream, and then Discover down here. Quite like that. Okay. And then where's my little, still got my paint palette, it's kind of almost activated. I'm just going to, I think I've got the wrong brush though. It was clearly the brush I was doing the blue with, the pink with. I'm just going to pop that around this ornament and just so that stands out ever so slightly from the piece. And maybe I need to just add a little bit of watery detail there just to soften how that looks. Okay, so that's that one. Very different from my sort of makes, I have to say. Okay, so put that one aside. Then we've got this one. For this one I'm thinking that I want more sort of subtle, I'm thinking something like this would be quite cool. And we need to get some gilding wax on this one, we'll see. Right, let's get a load of wet glue on that and stick that down there. So we might just need to bling it up a little bit. needs something. Just like that. Yeah, let's do that. Oops. Trouble is, once I've picked those up now, I can't pick them down. It's so pretty. Oops. Having difficulty getting that back out. And get a bit of glue in there. And pop that back in there. Get that stuck down. Okay. And then let's just grab a little bit of this building wax and hit that flower so it's not quite so one-toned. And while I'm at it, I mean, I hadn't planned to with this one, but seeing as the gilding wax has come out anyway, why not, let's just go for it. And just pick up a few of the bits, maybe just even frame the circle, and then maybe this circle as well. Just, oh, that's come off a little bit, never mind. Never mind, it all adds to that mixed media vibe. So now I'm just, because I've put that a bit further than I wanted to, I'm just going to add it to various places on there. Okay, and let's grab my rag and polish that up. And just to make it stand out ever just a little bit more. Okay, so I apologise if there was a dodgy edit there. I ran out of room on my SD card, but I have been filming away all the Sam K ones. Although you'll be seeing them over a period of days, I've sort of recorded them all in a 1 hour. So yeah, the SD card ran out. So let me have a little look. I'm thinking I'll use one of these. There you go. Love you to the moon and back. So I'm just going to chop that a little bit. Let's have this. I have to put that on something a bit more solid. Let's see. Chuck that under there. Just want it to look like it's meant to be. There you go. Love you to the moon and back. I think I'm going to have to add a little bit of extra sticky just to hold that down. Let's add a little bit of extra, it's a bit dried, a little bit of extra glue to that, and it's just to get that stuck down. Okay, that's cool. And then of course it's me, and I'm going to miss my white splashes if I don't do them. So let me just, I want to just cover Sentiment probably and that big gem, and we'll do the same up here. So I'll cover those, and then I've got my Daler Brownie white Artist acrylic ink, and it's quite good because it's quite opaque. I know I go through various phases of different things. I sort of rediscover things as well. Right, so I'm going to just pop that in, and let's just do some splashes. Like so. Get some on this one as well. There we go. And then, as always, what I suggest we do is we just spin our work a little bit, just so all the splashes are not going in the same direction. So I'm going to add a couple there. It just makes it look a little bit more random if you do that. If they all sort of fly off in one direction, it can look a bit funny. Well, I think it can anyway, it just depends what look you're going for. But it's not the look I'm going for, so so I spin it. Okay, so we'll just clear that away now. Okay, so that's my 2 completed Mixed Media projects there, done with the chipboard and some sprays. Yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this particular video. If you have enjoyed it here, please do consider liking and subscribing, and I'll be back again very soon. Okay, take care then, and goodbye.